Hello there. Welcome back to something a little different than usual. We're going to be starting a modded playthrough this time around. Mod being Terra Firma. Now, I'm going to just set it to peaceful because this mod is all about realism. Getting mugged by the undead isn't particularly real. Now, to create a new world. Now, there's a reason I'm creating it in survival and not hardcore. That reason is, it is almost impossible to get past even the early stages in a single life. This is the 19th attempt. So, we're going to be doing it in survival. And just playing the world that we get. Now, because of how large the world is, this next stage does take quite a while. But there we go. Finally loading into the world. Now, just give it a moment. There we go. First thing you'll notice, this game looks a little different than usual. We get 2 handbooks to help us out, in the early stages at the very least. Though, there's not as much hand-holding as other mod packs, mainly because of GregTech. I'm just going to claim 2 quick rewards. This one's for multiplayer only, which won't be a problem for single player. And then this one just gives the books. This one is also multiplayer exclusive, so I'll just get rid of that. And now, to start the game proper. Now, you can't cut down any trees with your bare hands. That's just not possible. So we need to collect these rocks on the ground. And you'll see we have a map mod built in. This is for multiplayer claiming chunks and also marking out deposits. So you see things like this. Almost every deposit will have a use at some point. So you want to mark them down on the map so you remember where they are. These deposits on the surface sometimes means deposits underground. Because you can't just mine at a certain level to get iron or other resources. You have to be in the right chunk and actually find the ore vein. You can also find different rock types and their deposits on the surface that are mixed in with the normal rock. Okay. So, lichen is useless, but clay. Clay is used for almost the entirety of early game and well into late game until we get something called fire clay. But for now, we're essentially in the Stone Age. So, let's make some stone knives so we can actually start collecting material. And you just put a handle on the end of the knife. There you go. Your first tool. This will allow you to get materials to actually start. Now over here, I need a shovel, because I'm going to get as much of this clay as I can with one shovel. Because I will be needing a lot of this. We will probably need about 10 clay deposits, so finding one early is good. But we're going to need a lot. This game makes you memorize plant types, like that little red flower we saw, to know where clay is. I'm also going to mark it on the map. Because clay doesn't just spawn anywhere. It spawns in very specific patches. We've got more ore, gold, with magnetite. Magnetite is a form of iron. So this is a gold and iron vein. This will be useful a lot later down the track. We could use gold with a little bit of silver to make bronze, but that's a lot further down the track. We probably won't even get copper in this first episode because of how hard this game is. So right now, I want a hatchet. So, carving the rocks again. This is called rock napping. You can actually produce a hatchet and think I want a hammer as well. This will allow very primitive mining. There we go. Hatchet and a hammer. That's our first full set of tools. We'll need to collect more rocks as we go along as well. Now, we'll need some other materials to keep going, but first off, we need more wood. Grab up these stones along the way. Now, cutting down a tree, very, very slow. But you get the whole tree in one chop, which is nice. Now, some extra clay down the river. Well, lake, I suppose. And some grain. You can turn this grain into just its grain component and straw, so that it keeps longer, you can actually process it down, but it'll be a while before we can actually turn rye into food. We need more straw and to actually clear out an area. Now, night comes rather quickly in here, so after we've cleared out a decent amount of area, we have to set up a campfire before we go explore. I'm going to set up camp near this lake so that we have a source of water. Because there is in fact fresh and salt water in this version. So, looking at the book and going into getting started, you can see that setting up a fire isn't normal. You need to have logs, sticks, and straw to do it, and you have to use a special fire starter. So, throw down some logs, a few sticks, and the straw. And this will give us a campfire after I use a fire starter on it. Fire starters have very limited durability. There we go. Now this will allow us to actually have light as soon as night falls. But we'll need some other crops apart from rye to actually get started. Beetroot is pretty good. We also want turnips if we can find them. And grapes aren't bad either, though they're a very niche crop compared to others. I will take them because they give a little bit of water as well as any stones we can find. Continuing exploration, we found a fruit tree, an apple tree at that. Apples are decently good, but mostly we just want the leaves. We can produce a special set of drying that'll actually allow us to preserve food somewhat. And now, back to explore. Another update, a hot springs. This means we're in a warmer biome. Should be able to weather out the winter in this area, so that's nice at least. But it doesn't provide us much use at the moment. This, on the other hand, lead. Now this isn't useful right now, but it is useful much further along. I cannot hold that because if I do for any long period of time, I will simply die. But that's more than enough exploring for now. Set some logs into the fire pit back at the camp and light it up. This will provide us the light we'll need, because right now, even at sunset, it's starting to get very dark. We need to find some branches or sticks. We can use these to produce torches. So torches don't require coal, at least not primitive torches. But they also don't last indefinitely. They go out. You'll have to either relight the torches, especially primitive ones, or produce lanterns, which require metal. So we'll set this in the fire pit to actually light up. That'll produce 2 torches. This is much more efficient, but very limited in use. We'll preserve as many logs as we can by just using torches. Each torch will last about 2 days. But even at night, we can't stop progressing if we want to survive at the very least. By using clay, we can produce unfired vessels and other clay items, in the same way that we knap rocks to make tools. We'll have to stick these in underground kilns to actually harden the clay. It's best to produce about 4 of these, because you can fit 4 in each underground kiln. So I'm gonna make as many as I can during the night. I'll also need a jug and some unfired ingot molds for metal when we find it. Right now, we can only drink with our hands, but a jug would allow us to transport water and bring it with us. There we go, a hammer mold. That should help once we actually find metal. We'll have to find as much primitive ore or surface metal that we can actually grind down and turn into things. You can cast any tool you'd like, though it would be much less strong than having blacksmithing. Since we have clay here, I'm gonna mine up more of it to be able to produce more clay items through the night. Now you'll notice we have a little triangle above our bars. That triangle is temperature. Right now in spring, temperature doesn't matter too much, but it can matter a lot in later times, especially when you're wet. So you don't want to be staying in the water if you can help it. Going into clay, you can search up all the different recipes. Right now, I want not a scythe blade, but a jug. Now this recipe is more complicated, but there we go. That's our priority, the jug. But before we can start making it, we need to store some things. Now, we would want chests, but we don't have chests, not until metal. So, storing logs and things on the ground is about as good as we're gonna get. Now that we have a bit more room, we should look at actually farming some food, because winter is an absolute pain in this. We do have some beet seeds, and looking at this, we should be able to farm something. The problem with this difficult game is, well, you can't just slap things down next to the river and expect them to grow. You need to worry about moisture, and you need to worry about actual soil nutrients along with temperature. I'll make some hoe heads so that I can actually progress and get something down. So, yeah, this is what I was talking about with moisture and nutrients. This soil has no nutrients, so it'll still grow, but it'll be incredibly slow. And we need a lot more moisture to actually farm. So, between 71 and about 50 is where we're going to be putting the beets. And I'll just expand this out. And just get some beets into the ground. These are a decent enough food source. I want turnips, but this will do for now. And look for anything else that we can actually plant right now. There doesn't seem to be much, so I'll have to go exploring again. This wild garlic will do wonders, but we'll need a few other plants to flesh it out as well. Been exploring for a while without... Ooh, wait. Pumpkins. Okay. So pumpkins, garlic, and beets. That's probably going to be our main food source for a while. We can pick up barley and wheat. We have all the grains right now, but we can't really grow any of them. Not at the current temperatures, at least. But this will serve us well. Now, I was just gonna head back to base, but I found canola. Now this is useful because this is a good fuel for lanterns. And with the right lanterns and oil fields, like canola oil, we will never have to worry about light again. But that'll take time. I'm just gonna mark it down and keep moving. There's some deposits here as well as sit right. So, yeah, this is a good enough place to mark down. Heading back, the path's pretty long. This is black coal. This can melt iron. I was not expecting to find that on this continent. That will be rather useful later. We'll still be stuck with charcoal for the first bit, but it's good to know that this is here. Okay, enough running around. Now that we're back to base, let's get these clay molds. Now, the process is simple, it's just time consuming. You put your clay in, cover it with a layer of straw. These ones can only have one per pole because they're smaller. Put enough straw to cover them. And then you go get some logs and just coat the top. Now this does take a lot of wood, which is almost a luxury at this point, with just stone tools. An axe can only get through about 2 to 3 trees before it actually goes down. And each of these take 8 logs. Now that'll be ready in a while. I'm gonna set the other 2 to burn, and have at least one of the large kilns going as well. So, out exploring again. This hickory is good. And, I thought that was another coal deposit. This is useful, but not at the moment. We're looking for this, actually. Native copper. This allows us to get enough copper, tools, to actually be able to mine a copper node. We need a lot of this. We can refine it down into other things, but is it just the one? If there's only one, it might not. Okay, we have a multi-copper vein here. That probably means there's a sizable deposit underground. So, it's time to actually set up the goal for this episode. Start mining. Ooh, rather sizable jump, but we're back into place. I'm just setting a saw mold to cook while I'm preparing for mining. And I'll need this, which is wooden tongs. I'd like to get some metal ones at some point, but you could technically just use wooden tongs right up to the end. This allows you to hold hot metal and other things. So, time to just progress. And I'll see you again when we're down in the area mining. Oh well, there is one last thing. See, I've gotten a mold with a vessel, so I can stick the saw blade into the vessel to actually fill it with liquid copper. This will allow us to finally get planks. And I'll fill the rest into a 2-ingot mold copper hammerhead. This will allow us to actually harvest copper down in the mine. You can see that the wooden tongs are going absolutely insane right now. That's because we're holding hot metal and they're taking damage constantly. Now, it looks like they have bad durability. That is just their heat bar going down. Once it disappears, they'll be back to full condition. We can speed that up by putting them in water, just to cool them off. The hammer cooling faster than the saw is a odd, but... Oh, there we go. You can also use the saw to cut down trees faster than the stone axe. So we might be doing that for a charcoal pit. It's time to head out and get enough copper for a pickaxe and a few other things. Okay, we are back at the mining site. Takes a while to get here. First thing we need to know about mining, you cannot just mine sideways in a stair. That will cause the entire mine to collapse on you. Made some ladders with the saw, so now we can actually dig down. And we're gonna need to dig all the way down to the deposit, because copper can't spawn in chert. We're gonna need to find the stone that's under this, the bedrock layer, though it's not made of bedrock, just a different rock type, that copper can spawn in. And we're gonna have to dig down the entire area above it just to be able to get to the copper. You can use mine shaft beams and supports, but that uses way too much durability on the saw. We do not have enough copper to be doing that yet. So I'll see you once I actually hit something. Okay, so it has been a while. We got right to this quartz layer before I had to go back up, but should have kept mining. There it is, stibnite. This contains trace amounts of copper. It's not a full copper ore, but if we mine down a little bit more, I suspect that we might be able to actually get some proper copper in this. Okay. Ooh. This area is dangerous. There we go. Now, we'll need a copper pickaxe to be able to harvest any of this ore, but I need to clear out enough of this area and set up a way back out with the ladder system. See gravity effects over blocks and stuff. So, need to head back up. Had to scavenge more copper sites to be able to get enough copper for the pickaxe, because I forgot to make it the last time, but here we go. Fill the vessel, put both the pickaxe, and I've made an axe head as well, which will allow us to cut down trees just a little bit faster. There we go. Just cool these off, and we'll finally be able to actually mine metal out of the ground instead of just relying on what we can find on the surface. I've been mining down the edge so we can actually get to the deposit with my new copper hammer. A little bit of a collapse here, but that's fine, because now we need a pickaxe to clean it up. Finally, after all of this, we have copper. Rich copper, too. We can refine this down using something called a quern, which is 2 solid stone blocks that are used to grind together. Now, let's get this copper out of here. After I manage to actually get this wall to stop collapsing. Well, nothing to do. Build it back up. Here we are. Full little copper mine. We'll have to expand it a quick bit, but this is our gateway into the next age. Instead of just being Stone Aged, primitive technology, individual, we finally have metal. And a good amount too. Here we are. This is the haul from just that little quarter we cut out. You've got normal, high, and a little bit of poor quality. Got a good amount of tephlohydrite as well, and a bit of stiff. There we are. More than enough copper to get started. And that's where we're going to end today. See you next time.